bubble.
Yeah.
So you actually feel like your bubble is being intruded on in VR too?
Yeah.
All the time, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know. I got used to it.
Did it change how you interacted with people in the real world? Like your bubble's not as big? Did it get smaller because of that?
No, I just got used to people walking through me.
Oh. Wow.
She doesn't do that in real life. At least
We
that
try
I've
to.
seen.
Okay,
We
that
definitely try to.
It's called a mosh pit.
Hello world, this is episode 11. In this episode, we talk about virtual reality. I sat down with Jessica, Rainey, and Ariana from TimeFireVR. They are also the founders of Women in Gaming International in the Phoenix area. And they are in the very middle of creating virtual reality worlds. And it's such a cool thing because I got to experience it. After this interview, they let me put on the headset. I got to go in the world and it was crazy. And we dive into what they're doing, how they're involved in gaming, how they're involved in developing what's going to be one of the most amazing technologies of virtual reality. And this world is bringing people together like nothing ever before. You're literally able to interact with people and move around and paint and do all sorts of stuff. And I'm really excited to share this episode with you. Be sure to subscribe, rate, review. If you're loving this stuff, let me know about it. If there's things that you like me to bring onto the show or things that I can do to make it better, hit me up. It's Clint at socialtechonair.com. And with that, I give you this episode. Awesome. I'm sitting here with Jessica, Rainey, and Ariana. They are part of a number of things, being from virtual reality, developing the code for a virtual reality world, and we'll learn a lot more about what that means. And also, you're part of the organization of WIGI, which is Women in Gaming International. So I want to welcome you to this show and thank you for coming and having this conversation with me.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for
having
having
us.
us. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and just start off and do an introduction. We'll start with Jessica, and then Rainey and Ariana, and just give me a little bit of background about yourself and we'll go from there.
Okay. Well, my name is Jessica Sweeney. I am currently the lead artist at TimeFireVR. We're making a game called Happing. I'm also a fellow co-founder with Rainey and Ariana for Women in Games International, the Phoenix chapter specifically. We started Wiggy about a year or two ago. We all worked together and we thought, hey, why not start this organization together? And since we're here, we're a driving force of the female gaming community in Phoenix specifically. And so that's kind of how it all started. We got into shenanigans together. We're growing together as artists and as, co-founders of Wiggy.
Awesome.
I'm Rainey. I'm a 3D artist / texture artist as of late. I've been here at TimeFire since its actual conception. I knew the founder before the company started. And I've gotten to watch it grow and blossom into this really, really cool symbiosis of creativity, art, exploration. And the people that I work with are pretty phenomenal people. And with having women in gaming, I feel like it's only going to make TimeFire that much stronger in terms of creating what we want to create, which is Hypatia.
Awesome. And Ariana?
My name is Ariana Alexander. My background, obviously none of us have worked in VR before So literally TimeFire was our first introduction to actually developing for VR. And like Rainey, I've also been here for quite a long time. And I did get to see a lot of the growth that the company went through originally. But like as far as background goes, like I went to school for art, more specifically animation. That's my main focus on the team as well as like just in life. Like you'd probably ask these two. I'm very animated in real life as I am like in my characters on screen. But not all of us went to school for this, so a lot of it has just been learning as we go and slowly working through the kinks and figuring out how to make VR at the same time as everyone else was. So that's kind of my background.
Awesome. So what is VR? Just give me a simple description or something about it.
A virtual world in which you can immerse yourself in 360 degrees into literally another world that is created out of pixels and geometry and code and made into something that you firmly believe is real, or at least your brain thinks it's real.
So is it the Matrix?
Yeah.
Yes.
Less scary than the Matrix, for sure.
Well, that's relative. I guess that depends on what environment you're in.
If the Matrix made the Matrix in VR, then yes, it would be.
Then at that point, what is real? What is real?
Seriously.
Are these the kind of conversations you get to have here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, virtual reality does kind of bring into a question of what is reality, because once you immerse yourself in it, like that it'll kind of dawn on you that you'll find yourself doing things that seems natural to you to do in real life, but in a virtual world you would think it wouldn't. So like when you're in a headset and you're talking to somebody and you're moving your hands like this and you're seeing your hands move like this, you can't see my hands.
They're moving like this.
It's just weird and uncanny how like natural it feels to where you're almost not conscious of it, that you're not in a world that consists of matter, but of pixels and obviously data.
It's like traveling. When you go somewhere, you're like, wow, everything looks so cool and weird and different. But imagine that, but not in like the actual world. It's somewhere else.
You're in your living
technology.
room.
Yeah. The only thing that separates you is the headset. And once you get used to wearing the headset, then you don't really notice it at all, really.
And when you take it off, it's like you're being transported back to where you first started. Like, you'll see it on people's faces all the time when they take off the headset. They're like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a surreal experience.
So Inception.
Yeah.
It can be.
It was funny. We had one girl come in over the weekend to play test with us. And she was looking around. It was her first time in VR. And she made some snow over in our photo museum. She placed some snow in a location. She was looking up at the snow and she's like, I feel like I just took a lot of drugs.
Wow. So I'm trying to recall how long has VR been around?
Oh, a long time.
Depends on
like
who you
since
ask.
the 80s.
Yeah.
That's the original VR, yeah. It's
I'd
very
Say mid to late
grid-like.
80s.
Yeah.
I think there was a time, so I got the opportunity to listen and meet these ladies a few months ago. They gave a presentation. You gave a presentation on Wiggy, I think it was, at ASU, at Arizona State University.
Mm.
And I think, Rainey, you were talking about your first experience with it.
Yes, I was in 4th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a setup at a Metro Center, which is a local mall here, and the headset wasn't a headset, it was a helmet, and it was connected with a bunch of wires, like on this crane type apparatus, and you were given this big bulky gun, and that was your weapon in the game, which was very primitive. It was very Tron-like. But even that was surreal enough that I wanted to go again. And you can tell even back then that there were a lot of possibilities. Just the technology wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that makes it that much more exciting to be a part of it now, seeing the rebirth of VR, if you will.
Sure. Did you think you were going to be a part of that development? Like at that time?
At that time, it probably not. I would have in a heartbeat if I felt that I would be able to do it.
Okay.
But being that young, I figured that was way out of my league. So, excuse me.
Bless you. So tell me about TimeFire. What was this conception? How did TimeFire come into place? Because like you said, virtual reality is everybody is experimenting, if you would. They're discovering how to make it, how to develop it. It's almost like back in the day with Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and making the personal computer. Now we're at that point with VR. So TimeFire, VR.
Well, that's more of a question that you would have to ask our founder, John Wise.
Huh?
But the one thing that I can tell you is that TimeFire is actually an acronym.
Okay.
It is short for the Temporal Immersive Multidimensional Enlightenment for Intraspecific Rebirth Emergence.
God, that was a mouthful.
Did you catch that?
Can you do that again?
10
One
times.
more time.
Say it really fast.
No, I feel like his goal was leaning more towards doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when there was a reemergence in VR technologies, you know, everybody couldn't wait to play their favorite games or watch, you know, their favorite type of movies in VR. John wanted to create a space for people to connect, a place where you can express yourself and be creative and maybe take a class or, you know, meet up with a family member you haven't seen in 10 years that lives in Europe.
A place with no zombies, no violence.
Exactly.
Family friendly, huh?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it's not necessarily like a Disneyland per
Okay.
se, but it's more of a real human experience, I guess, more than a video game or a movie.
You're not just doing one thing. You can do many other things with people just depending on what you want to do. You're not limited to just shooting things. You can shoot cats at people, or you can also do something else, right?
Shoot cats, huh? Ah, that would be interesting to see.
It is. It's a lot of fun. I do it every day.
You get up and go in the morning. So the product that you're working on is called Hypatia.
Mhm.
What is Hypatia then? I mean, I think we probably talked on it, but how did that come into?
Watch Hypatia is.
Yeah, we have a whole series called
Yeah, hold on.
Hypatia is.
It is a social cultural exploration type of game. We try not to use the word game because it's not really a game. It's more of an like everybody else said, experience.
Uh-huh.
There's not like an objective that you're trying to achieve. It's more of a place that you can go in virtual reality, if you so choose.
So when you go, Jessica, go into Hypatia, and it's not for development or anything like that, just to experience it, what do you do?
You walk around and see what interests you, and then you do it.
So what interests you in Hypatia?
So for me, right now, the art studio is probably the most fun, where you just walk into this crazy building and you're like, hey, what's in here, and then you open the door and you load into the level, and you're presented with like canvases and 3D painting and puzzles, and just there's so much to do when you walk around and turn a corner. You go down this hallway and you see like, whoa, there's like giant faces. I'm going to paint on these faces. Why not? And you're doing it with, in my case, my coworkers. And even though we've played this a ton of times, each time we do something different. And that's sort of the experience of real life. In real life, you go out and you go to the mall and you hang out and whatever. It's the same thing. But each time you do something different, you have those new experiences, even though it's the same place. And that's kind of what I think Hypatia is when you go and experience it just like the real world. You do what you want to do, given what you have.
Uh-huh. It's going to help me be more active.
What do you mean?
Well, if I spend all my time laying on my floor watching, scrolling through Facebook and stuff like that.
I think that's more of a natural side effect, not necessarily the end goal.
Okay. That's all right. It gets me on my feet more. Huh.
We definitely want to help people connect with one another in a little bit of a different way.
Okay.
Than just, playing an MMO online where you're, in front of a 2D screen talking to people through text.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually go and meet people almost face to face, considering it's VR.
Yeah.
Avatar to avatar.
Yeah. Screen to screen, yes.
So are the avatars human-like, or are they not there yet?
We started with humanoid characters and it got uncanny valley very fast.
That was a mistake.
It's really difficult to bring life into the eyes. And when you're in virtual reality, they're life size and you're life size. And when someone walks up to you, it got kind of
It's
creepy.
very intimidating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I've never
Because
considered
people
that.
don't walk up to your face to say hello. They're like, 5 feet away.
Yeah.
Bubble.
Yeah.
So you actually feel like your bubble is being intruded on in VR too?
Yeah.
All the time, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't know. I got used to it.
Did it change how you interacted with people in the real world? Like your bubble's not as big? Did it get smaller because of that?
No, I just got used to people walking through me.
Oh. Wow.
She doesn't do that in real life. At least
We
that
try
I've
to.
seen.
Okay, that
We definitely try to.
It's called a mosh pit.
never considered that. So what are the motions then? Are there motions that are expressed in VR?
Yes.
Okay.
But you see them and you hear them. So we don't have the ability to show facial expressions yet, but we do have our voices and we have like our hand motions.
Okay.
Hands go far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can communicate pretty effectively just using your hands. You can point to things. You can wave at people. Waving is very common movement, motion in VR.
Yeah.
People understand it easily.
Same with high fives.
High fives.
Yeah, high-fiving is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't watch the elbow. Just kind of have to guess.
Somewhere around
Over
here.
here. From here.
Huh. So, wow. What? How are each of you involved with the development of Hypatia?
So we're each artists.
Okay.
Like she said, she is our art director, so she kind of coordinates with all of the artists, and she basically divvies out specific tasks for those artists to accomplish by a certain time. So she keeps us on track and keeps us busy and makes sure that we are meeting the needs of the rest of the team.
So sometimes like programming might need art or design might need art. So that's our job to sort of fulfill that role and make sure our visuals are good and that we're not, impairing the game with poor quality art. We're producing stuff that's high quality visually, but also optimized. So the game is a very good experience for everyone. Because frame rate is everything in
Yeah.
It's
VR.
everything.
So is it what frame rate?
Frame rate is so how fast the frame is changing whenever you look at something or move around. So
Mhm.
if it's too slow, people tend to get sick a lot faster. So our goal in this respect for VR is to make sure that that never falls below a certain number
Mhm.
so that people don't get sick as much.
Yeah, because it's not the kind of sick where you sit down and you feel better a few minutes later.
Mhm.
Sometimes you can drop for the rest of the day, just can't even get back in. So it's there's a fine line there.
Yeah.
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 So you say decreases. Do
The
you get sick no
lower-
matter what?
No.
I do.
No?
Some people are more sensitive to
Yeah.
VR, obviously.
Okay.
It's something you also get used to, I think.
That's also true.
Yeah.
How long does that take?
It depends on the person. I know online some people talk about training themselves to get used to VR, so they go, 5 minutes a day
Okay.
until they can tolerate it, and then maybe after like a month they can do like 10 minutes a day. It just depends on the person, really.
Interesting.
Yeah, it only took me a couple months to be able to stay in for over an hour, which is now I find it's easy to do. Like you don't even notice that
Yeah.
you've been in that long.
Huh. Do you know what
It's scary.
the time flies? Huh?
Oh yeah.
What is a frame rate? Like, I think the natural eye is around 24.
So, I think eyes can actually perceive up to a much higher frame rate, but it's
Right.
basically, you know how animations are, right? It's about 24 frames a second.
Okay.
That is what you could consider a frame rate for like old-fashioned cartoons. In this case, like most games, run about 60 frames a second. That's why they're so smooth, right, on the computer. VR runs at about 90.
Wow.
Or you want it to. At
Yeah.
least.
Ideally.
Yeah,
That
ideally.
takes a lot of
Yeah.
processing, probably, doesn't it?
And it's 2 monitors too, because you have a
Because
monitor
each
for
eye.
each eye. So
Okay.
it's 90 per monitor.
Wow. That's
So,
probably in part why it's taken so long to develop the technology for it.
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's crazy. So tell me what's some of the potentials of virtual reality? Obviously, we get this this ability to connect again with people, or to connect at a different level. Before it's chat, and then text messaging, and social media. Now we can almost go on vacation in VR to a place and hang out for a little bit. What's some of the other potentials that VR brings, or can bring?
I use it personally, using just like mobile VR, so like my gear. Before I had a crappy cardboard, so I upgraded. But I personally use it for like myself for relaxation, or whenever I have to do a public speaking engagement for Wiggy, I go into like public speaking VR experiences. So I use it as like a training tool
Wow.
for myself personally.
I didn't know you did that. I did that too.
Yeah, I did that too. It was pretty awful the first time because I had a bad phone. So it's an experience where people are sitting in front of you, but they start vibrating after a couple
Yeah,
minutes.
like they're gonna leave.
But it worked. It did the trick, honestly.
Wow, did they give you feedback too? Throw tomatoes?
Some of them. You know what? That's pretty funny. Our live theater, we can throw tomatoes at people when they're performing.
Okay.
And other things like fruit.
Fruit,
And
yeah.
cats?
And cats, yeah.
Yes, yes.
That might have implications that we didn't think about.
That's true.
That's
But
interesting.
yeah, so VR can be more for, teaching people or retraining yourself for personal use instead of just engaging with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it help with your stage fright?
I think so, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, in school you give a presentation and that's your experience, but usually you don't get much of that, especially if you don't like doing it and you skip it. So then throughout life you have no experience.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else? I like this one. Hear more.
It helped with my fear of heights. One of the first experiences I had as an adult, I went on, you stood on a beam and the ground drops out from underneath you. And so you're just standing on this tiny beam. And I didn't know that was going to happen. And I immediately started sweating. My heart started racing. And it was terrifying. And I knew that I was standing on the floor in an office with my coworkers right there, but it still had that profound effect on me that my brain couldn't wrap around that it wasn't real. And so I did it a few more times, and now it doesn't bother me as much. And I find that, like, if I go into skyscrapers like downtown, I can look over and not have my knees buckle. But that's what interests me in the future of VR. Is I love like where it can actually make a profound difference for somebody who may have PTSD or, you know, something like agoraphobia, someone who hasn't been able to leave their house. You know, that's where I'd like to see VR shine. Yeah, definitely.
Wow. I've heard about like psychologists helping people guide with VR through overcoming phobias, stuff like that. Even to the point where they put them on a high rise, or no, they put them on like this edge of a thing with VR. So it simulated where they were, kind of gave them some senses. And anyways, that's cool. What else?
So interesting tidbit. Our youngest player is 3 years old. Children seem to respond to VR they adopt it very quickly. So it's kind of like, you know, when TVs first came out, you know, people didn't like them, and then they sort of became mainstream, and then cell phones came out, and then those sort of became mainstream. That's kind of what's happening with VR. Soon, hopefully, maybe not so soon, somewhere in the middle. I think, in my opinion, it's going to be a mainstream as, you know, the internet and television, you know, except all of those things can then be integrated with VR.
Be one and the same.
Kids will grow up with it. And, like, one of the goals of Hypatia is to use it as an educational tool, as a sort where learning happens more naturally instead of, you know, planting kids in the middle of a classroom. Because there are, you know, VR applications like that where, you know, kid puts on a headset and he's in the middle of a classroom and there's a teacher at the front of the room talking at him. We don't want education to be like that, though. We'd rather have kids experience things and learn from those experiences instead of sitting in a classroom, listening to a teacher talk, go home, read this page or these many pages, solve these problems, then go back and do it over again the next day.
So essentially you can, so I'm thinking of the example of like going to a museum or in the case I think in Hypatia that you have dinosaurs. So you can have a teacher taking you through this world of dinosaurs and telling you about the dinosaurs
Or
and watching them
in
in
this
action.
case, maybe like a tour guide.
Okay.
So the tour guide tells you about the dinosaurs, and then you can see it for yourself. And then they can tell you more about it while you're watching it in front of you unfold.
And then if you want to learn trigonometry, you can be taken to the pyramids and they can teach you trigonometry as they build a pyramid in front of your eyes.
You can learn physics, flying a rocket.
Yeah.
Everyone learns better hands-on. It's just getting access to that hands-on learning
Right.
that's difficult. And VR kind of breaks that, I think.
So how accessible is VR right now?
I mean, if you have a phone and a cardboard, you have VR. Yeah.
A cardboard? Google Cardboard?
Google Cardboard.
Or I mean, one of these cardboards. We have some of our own TimeFire ones that are similar. That we've actually taken over to the school over at Salt River. And we got to introduce some of the kids over there to VR using those. And they were pretty excited about it.
So education seems to be stuck in the 20s, the 30s.
Earlier than that.
I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that we take VR and just have it simulate the classroom, essentially. It sounds like that's happened before. Like that's currently a thing.
Well, the thing is, like, what we're trying to do at least is have VR replace the classroom, not simulate it. The idea of a classroom is kind of outdated in and of itself, if you think about it.
I think about the Star Trek when it was showing the young Spock and he was in a little like half eggshell learning, and the computer's talking to him and things are popping up in front of him.
Yeah.
In augmented reality. What's the 3-year-old? How did he or she?
She.
Did she do anything that surprised, like something that you hadn't seen anybody else do?
I personally didn't get to see her, unfortunately. Okay. She's actually the daughter of our videographer. So he brought her in to try out some of the stuff that he'd been working on, mainly 360 video.
Okay.
So he put her in the headset, and then they put her in Hypatia. So she got to interact with some of the stuff that we've got going on in Hypatia. And, I mean, she responded to it like we had hoped any kid would. I remember in the video that we released, at the end of it, she was jumping up and down. Can I go again? And that's what makes our job worth it.
Yeah. I have a 2-year-old. Can we test it on her?
Probably. I mean,
I don't know how long she'd keep it on because she even pulls her bows out. But she loves watching TV and doing the games on the iPad.
We had a 5-year-old one time put it on. He was the squirmiest little dude. Remember Noah's little cousin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we had
kid.
to. Yeah, he played chess with us. And kicked our butts too.
Yeah, he was a little too good. So you need to go home now.
I'm done.
But I will say this, the few kids that we have had in VR pick it up really quickly.
Yeah.
Adults seem to have a little trouble with the controls, and there are a lot of controls that you can program into using headsets, but we try and keep it user friendly, and sometimes it's disorienting being in for the first time. But kids, it doesn't matter if they've been in or not, they just go. They're like professionals.
They adapt quickly.
Very quickly.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see what the effect is on the brain long term. I mean, if it's helping you overcome fear of heights and public speaking, and what they say, public speaking is more scary than death for a lot of people.
I don't know about that. Insects are way
It's on
worse.
par.
For some people.
Yeah.
But yeah, just even if it like changes perception of reality almost. That's going to be fun to read about the studies and research that's conducted on that. So along the lines of, there's so many good things that VR can and is doing. I don't want to be too biased, but what's some of the maybe downsides that can happen with VR?
It's costly.
It's expensive?
Yeah.
So the only people that have money can get access to it?
At least to the more expensive units. There are cheaper units out there, like we mentioned earlier that you can get a cardboard and a phone, and that's relatively affordable, but like some of the more immersive experiences like the HTC Vive and stuff like that, you need a computer that can run it, and then you need the actual equipment, the headset itself, which can be a bit pricey for the average Joe. So obviously that's something that's kind of still in the works. The software companies, hardware companies are currently working on making those more affordable.
And they will. I mean, as soon as demand goes up, which is moving
yeah.
exponentially. Yeah, they'll get cheaper.
Hmm.
For me, it's personal space.
Okay.
Sometimes VR is a little too realistic. And when somebody does get really close to you, it's awkward. And it really shouldn't be, because I'm in a room over here and they're in a room over here.
Mm-hmm.
But the avatar is like right in my face. And it really kind of shocked me how that made me feel, that I legitimately had a reaction to it.
Wow.
You know, it wasn't overtly strong. I didn't get angry or upset. It just, the fact that I acknowledged it and was like, wow, okay, that's really kind of strange.
Online, there's a bunch of horror stories, and thankfully I don't think any of us have experienced anything like that. You know, hopefully never. But it's really a new world. People are trying to figure out how to behave properly in this space that's new, and no one really knows what they're doing, so they're testing their boundaries.
It used to be a VR etiquette.
Yeah, so
Sure.
developers are keeping up with their
happened over
toes
time.
on trolling in real life and not real life.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think of the issues that we see with social media, and that, if you would, that mask that you get, or at least the degree of separation.
Exactly.
So people are a lot more abrupt. They're a lot more, they'll troll. They'll be more rude. They'll be more short. The emotions kind of are more expressive there. Interesting. What would you say on the etiquette?
Etiquette wise, I mean, obviously, when you're interacting with someone in virtual reality, it should be the same as interacting with someone in real life. You know, you want to treat that person as though they are a person standing in front of you and not simply a virtual character.
Mhm.
Like,
There's a person behind the headset
Yeah,
who is that
exactly.
avatar. That's essentially a real person,
Yeah.
right?
It's still a person.
You don't go up to them and shout at them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Wow.
or follow them around and make them feel awkward.
Yeah, you don't chase them. It's definitely terrifying.
Interesting. So, Rainey, you were talking about how you felt an actual, in the bubble experience.
Oh,
And so I wonder, as it develops, do we get to experience more of that? So maybe it would help drive more of that human interaction rather than a virtual sense. So you might act more appropriately that way.
I hope so.
Hope so. Can it be programmed in?
We're trying.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You can block people on social media, and you can try to think
People in VR.
yeah,
Yeah.
then they disappear. There's it's a Black Mirror.
Oh,
I think they did one on that where they were kind of able to block people. You couldn't hear what they said or anything. But interesting. What's some of the ethics that you're dealing with as far as VR goes? Like the etiquette, some other ethical issues that you're discussing and working through?
I think it's more of just representing everyone's perspective and voice as much as you can. You know, in the real world, everyone reflects themselves in, architecture and the kind of information that you present. If you only show one-sided, that's all you get. We really want it to represent what it's like in the real world, how everyone wants to experience different things, be it like art, photography, a theater, or just, promote other people to share their experiences also.
yeah. I don't think we really know yet how it's gonna be affected, and how people are gonna be affected, and how they treat each other in VR.
Yeah.
So it makes it so fun, so fascinating to work here. So we're testing those boundaries.
Yeah. So part of the team that's working on this virtual world, is made up of how many people?
About 30.
30? And what does it take to build a VR world? You're the designers and creating characters. You're creating textures and walls and 3D spaces and other artwork. What are the roles that go into making a virtual world in addition to that?
Well, if that's not a loaded question.
I guess you need programmers or something, right?
Allegedly.
Someone to make
Maybe
things
somebody
work.
with database experience.
I mean, if you want
Yeah.
functionality, I suppose.
Right.
It's like any other game. You need someone who does, the programming. You need someone who thinks about player experiences. So the design, you need art for it. You need sound. You need promotion. Basically, anything else you need in any other game production is what you would need for a VR game. And maybe even more, because it's a new field, you need more people testing it, trying to experiment and figure out what's good and what's bad.
You need people who can come up with ideas and implement them.
Mm-hmm.
You need a lot of things. And like, as far as creating a virtual world, we're still kind of in that process, and it's been almost 3 years.
3 years. So you can't
So I
create it in
think-
6 days.
You can. It might not be pretty.
Yeah.
We don't work that quickly.
I can make you a cube.
A cube.
A cube.
Virtual cube.
So
I'm gonna have a
definitely one of the things you need is time
wow. So 3 years.
and determination
Determination.
and perseverance.
And I think mindfulness. You have to think about what the player is going to do.
Uh-huh. So how many people have you had come and play with the game, or enter the world?
Anyone you
Always.
can. It's hard.
And that's a beta testing kind of.
Well, I mean, we've had people come into the office and we've put them in VR just as a result of them being here. Like, hey, you want to see what VR is like?
Yeah.
Since you're here.
Because that's just how we roll.
And literally, like, people delivering packages. Or coming in to use the bathroom from another building. I mean, anybody who wants to go in, we'll put you in.
Awesome. So really, seriously, people can just swing by and try it out.
Generally, it's not necessarily a good idea because at some point we do have to work on the game.
And stranger danger, right?
And stranger danger.
Okay.
But we do plan very soon in the near future, plan on having open testing.
Yeah.
Where people can come to the office and kind of get a feel for what we do and
That's
go
cool.
in.
I
We're
think
not creepy, we promise.
I walked by the Microsoft store in some of the malls, and they got their little VR set up there, but there's always a line.
There's always a line.
Always a line.
I remember my first VR experience where there was a line.
How long did you wait?
Probably about 15 minutes to half an hour. I don't know. My feet were killing me, so I was sitting down the whole time. And funny enough, it was one of the guys that works here. He's our creative director. He was the guy whose game that I was waiting to see.
Oh, wow.
But the only reason I wanted to see it was because it was in VR. It was over at Phoenix Comic Con 2014. And I'd been volunteering all weekend, so I was very exhausted. But right before I'd left, after my last shift, I saw the line and I was like, screw it, I'm not going to get this chance again. So sat in line, not stood. People behind me were also sitting. They're like, oh, she's doing it, it must be okay. And yeah, it was a long line. And I only got like maybe a couple minutes worth of actually being in the headset.
Yeah.
Because there were other people behind me, but it was enough.
You were sold, huh? What was your first experience, Jessica?
It was during my job interview for TimeFire. So I heard about VR in the news because I always liked upcoming tech trends, and so I found this job listing and I was like, even if I don't get the job, I get to try VR, so why not? So I tried a lot of cardboard apps. I think it was like this really crappy like roller coaster simulator. I only got to try for like 30 minutes because John wanted to talk about the job or something. But that and I'd say Hypatia were my first experience. And that was old Hypatia too, so the amount that it's come through.
Bless your heart, you
Yeah.
stayed.
I thought it was cool.
What is that like to? Well, for example, I've done videos and photography and stuff like that, and it's really cool to see the end product and then to see it go, and the reactions that different people have to it. What is it like to create something, put it in this virtual world, put on the headset, and then experience it?
We always want to make it better, I think.
Yeah.
As artists, we always just want to, we're like, that's not good enough.
Never
Let's make
good
it
enough.
better. So it's definitely challenging.
We
But
see the flaws.
yeah, it's rewarding to see other people's reaction,
Okay.
though, I think.
Yeah, because they don't see what we see.
I wasn't expecting that, but it makes sense.
But what's really interesting is because we work very closely together, it's kind of neat to start a project. Like in my case, I created a cathedral in which one of the other artists did the interiors for, and then another artist did the lighting, and another artist did blah, 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 so on and so forth. And so seeing that final iteration is just, like, I've literally teared up in some cases. And with the cathedral I did, because I was supposed to recreate Strasbourg Cathedral, which I had actually been to in real life. And the only thing that was missing were the people. Like, there were the dust particles and the light beams, which we call God rays, coming in through the stained glass windows. And oh my gosh. And I remember walking up to the altar in VR and just being enamored with it. And then I heard breathing, and I said aloud, are there any NPCs in here? And then I'm thinking, wait, why would they be breathing? Like, and I turned, and our graphic artist put a T-Rex in there because he thought it was really funny, and it chased me out of the cathedral, and it was really scary. So yeah. Yeah.
Surprise.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of those.
Terrified me. Because it's life size.
You said you cried. Now I understand.
Yeah.
It was because of him, too, that we actually have the Dino Museum, too.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because he's nuts for all things reptilian, so he was the inspiration for that entire museum.
Mhm.
And one of the driving forces behind it, too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to keep making dinosaurs. We're going to have to do something with them.
They'll go somewhere. Wow. So what is the future of VR? Well, here, let's before we dive into that, as far as like the broad category, what's the future of Hypatia? What's some key dates that we can look forward to, and when?
Hopefully more interactions and further expansions.
Mhm.
We definitely want to make it bigger and, put more interactions, more stuff to do in there for people to connect over and learn about and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Is it going to be open for, like, if I want to take a group in there and for example, if I want to be a tour guide, can I be a tour guide in there and people can come to me and we can...
That's probably something we could arrange if you know enough about the area and such.
Yeah.
No, we've always wanted to have professors come in and speak about whatever they teach in real life, but be able to work with us in creating an actual experience. So if we have an astrophysicist come in, which would be amazing, and they want to talk about possibly, going to Mars, we can create that environment, and then they can go through the lesson as
And this is what Mars is like. Boom, you're on Mars.
way better than a
Mars.
textbook.
Wow. So that is that something that can be monetized, or is that kind of an intention eventually? Because I think I was recalling there's something like you can have marketplaces and get places, and is that like something that you'd exchange with Bitcoin or anything like that?
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still so early in the game.
Yeah.
But ideally, if we are going to have teachers and professors come in, we would like to pay them.
Sure.
But we also want to make it accessible for everybody as well.
Right.
So, we're figuring it out.
Oh, sure. Who do you want to reach most with this world? You could say everybody, but that's kind of broad. Is there someone in mind that you're creating this for?
I'd say school-age children.
Yeah.
Yeah, start them young.
Those who don't have access to, nice museums or traveling abroad. Yeah.
Or I've never seen a dinosaur in real life.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't until
I personally
I was
think
here.
VR is for all ages.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we'd like to have more adults in VR just to see how far technology has come.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much we want kids to embrace it, but we also think we want to make it inclusive to everyone of all ages.
As you grow older, you get scared to try new things.
We want old people.
Yeah.
I personally want to see grannies in VR because that would be amazing.
And not to scare them, by the way. Yeah. There's a lot of those.
That makes sense. That's exciting. I think I really appreciate what you've shared. There's a lot more to VR than I think what most of us, myself included, most of us think. Being able to hear what you're just doing with just Hypatia and here at TimeFire and the potentials that concept alone has, let alone everything else. I kind of wish VR was here right now, or that I was younger.
Me too.
I'm just grateful to work here.
Yeah.
Because we play for a living.
Play for a living.
Seriously.
I'm like, we have to test. Like, okay.
Darn.
Guess you have to play the game.
Go play a game.
Is
You don't
that
get
she
tired
wants
of
of
it?
people?
Yeah.
No, each time, like Jess said earlier, each time is different.
Okay. Wow. Well, this is something that we got to dive a lot more into. We didn't even touch on Wiggy. I think we should have a conversation about that later, but why don't you give me just like a quick thing. What is Wiggy and who can get involved with it?
So Wiggy is the organization of Women in Games International, which works to support and encourage and basically promote women in the game development industry. So in order to address the obvious
Sort of imbalance.
Sorry, my word, like I'm using my hands to, but
She's an anime.
She does, yeah.
She's rigging herself.
the imbalance of women in the game development industry, because women are obviously 50% of gamers, right? So if all of your game developers are men, then there's an imbalance, right? So we definitely want to help push that so that all gamers can enjoy a more inclusive game experience. As well as, game developers in general can be more happy and feel more appreciated and involved. At least that's my interpretation.
So we're going to conclude here. I appreciate you sharing that. And we'll do two things. First, I'll have you each tell me what your favorite technology was growing up, and then what your favorite or what technology you're most excited for in the future. I understand if you say VR. And then after we go through that, then I'd just like to have somebody tell me where I can learn more about Wiggy and where I can learn more about TimeFireVR. So let's go ahead and start with Ariana.
Okay.
Favorite technology growing up and future technology that you're most excited for?
Well, I'm sure this will be a complete and utter surprise to you, but I'd have to say mine would be video games. More specifically, PlayStation. I was a console kid, and yeah, I spent a lot of my childhood playing games and geeking out over RPGs and so forth. So, yeah, I'd have to say that's probably my favorite. Otherwise, why would I be here?
Fair enough. What technology outside of VR are you excited for? That's
Outside
coming up.
of VR, that's coming up.
Or can be. You can make it up too. That's how technologies are made.
I'm not sure, in all honesty. There's, a ton that I can think of off the top of my head, but none that I'm especially excited for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just seeing. Well, actually, no. I remember there was a time last year when I was reading on Facebook. I have a bunch of notifications there. There were 3 different cures for cancer that I was reading about. You had the cannabis plant, and then you had this other lizard surgery thing, then you had something else over here. I'm just holy moly, we might actually reach a cure for cancer, because my mom actually died of cancer. So whenever I read about stuff like that, I'm always I always think back on man, if that had been around when she was still alive, we might have been able to. And for everybody else that has died of cancer in the past 20 years, I'm excited to see that we're moving forward finally. And medicine has moved forward and starting so that diseases that were once thought of as being incurable can start to approach the stage of being curable, as opposed to just being treatable, with chemotherapy and surgery and so forth.
I like that. I hope for that too. Rainey, favorite technology growing up?
I didn't really have one as a kid. I was a tomboy.
Okay.
And I was always outside getting into trouble. Teenager, though, because my father was a programmer, I was one of the first people that I knew that actually got a computer and had the internet. So that created a monster. The rest is history. The technology I think that I'm most looking forward to is, I'd say, cross between artificial intelligence and cybernetics. I really
that's a
like
good answer.
I would really want to be a cyborg. That's a life goal.
Cyborg.
I would love to be a cyborg. Absolutely. And just be riddled with nanobots, just fixing whatever needs to be fixed. So.
I can't top that answer. I'm out.
You can try.
Okay.
All right, Jessica.
Be a cyborg with me.
We can be cyborgs together. Growing up, I had a really, really crummy computer. I could barely play Minesweeper, but I loved it. I remember growing up, we had slow internet, the slowest you can get, so I could barely load Neopets or whatever that was trendy when I was growing up. So I spent a lot of time with my computer, and it's something that I just still do today. In terms of future technology, I wanted to say like mixed reality, but that's kind of a cop out, I think, because it's still pretty closely tied to VR. But aside from that, I'm excited for AI from a different perspective than cybernetics, more so of how it can predict what you're thinking based off of, your patterns, either like browsing the internet or just talking or,
Big data.
it's guessing what you're doing next, which is terrifying, but also cool because I think that could challenge us as people. So how can we break out of our own minds into something that's unpredictable, but in a good way, obviously.
Play Hypatia.
Be Hypatia. No, really.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. That's
Big data. Interesting.
It's spooky. It scares
is.
me. Don't track me, but do. Yeah.
just make it better.
Yeah.
Every time you take a quiz, it's locked.
It's true.
Yeah.
There's sometimes when I go to search for this long form question on Google and I get like 2 words into it and they're like, what is? And then it has the rest of it.
Yeah.
And that freaks me out sometimes because it's like the most random thing, at least in my mind, but somehow they matched me up with someone else that searched it.
I know, yeah.
It's crazy. Well, where can we learn more about Wiggy? Let's start with that one.
So we do have a Facebook page as well as the international branch of Women in Games International, because there's chapters and then there's the main branch. They have a website with all of the branches information on them. Each one has a page that describes that specific chapter. So I believe it's getwiggy.com.
Yeah.
And then our Facebook page is facebook.com/
Wiggy Phoenix. So WIGIPHX. Wiggy Phoenix. If you Google that, we'll pop up.
PHX. Okay.
And that is where we post a lot of our updates. We also have a meetup group on meetup.com. So if you search Wiggy Phoenix, we should pop up. And then that is also where we will post our future events. I believe we have one coming up toward the end of the month that we're gearing up for. So
if anyone just wants to learn more about game development, whether you're male or female or whatever, just hit us up. We love to talk to people.
Cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting. And the VR, TimeFireVR and Happing.
So TimeFireVR.com. We have, a Facebook, a Twitter, all of that jazz. If you just go to the website and follow us on social media, you can learn more about Hypatia.
We're well connected.
That's good.
our social media girl makes sure of that.
Yes, she took the picture. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun. Awesome. Thank you so much. I think we should meet again. I'd love to, any one of these topics we can dive into more, but I'd love to learn more about the actual women in gaming aspect of it and get some inspirations there. And, because I got a daughter that's 2, and I'm always looking for opportunities to have content for her that can help inspire
That's
her. And I
something
think
that
what
we
you're
share a
doing
lot.
is,
You should teach her to code.
yeah. Right now she is dragging letters into a silhouette of the letter and learning words into it and repeating the words, and it
Keep
amazes
moving
me.
forward with that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I don't have any problem with her using technology in addition to exploring the world around her too. So she's got a good balance of both. So that's
Well,
pretty
technology, I think, is going to become a big part of the world around her,
Yeah.
too. So the earlier that you expose her to it, the better.
cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right out of the womb, she was texting people. So
Don't need to know words if you have emojis, right?
It's
right.
true, yeah.
Oh,
point.
she does. She'll rename all my folders and stuff like that with emojis. Yeah.
That's funny.
Does things that I don't even know how she does it. It's amazing. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
this. I'm looking forward
Thank you.
to future opportunities to chat. So
Definitely.
Open angle bracket / HTML close angle bracket.